We're back. It's been a long time, but we are back. It's Legal AF meets Court Accountability Action with its two leaders, Lisa Graves and Alex Aronson. And since we were last together, boy, do we have a lot to talk about. This is, I think, the first time we've gotten together after the election, or at least the three of us together. And on this particular hot take, we got to talk about this breaking news. It looks like there's a stalemate that's been broken to try to take advantage of what's left on the clock to get Biden's remaining judicial nominees confirmed in the Senate. It's being run by Dick Durbin and by Chuck Schumer. And there's a bargain that's been struck. And I'm not sure everybody's going to love it, but it is the reality. There has been a trade. It's a horse trade to get the remaining judicial nominees approved, as many as possible, as fast as possible. Let me bottom line this. They're not going to get all the vacancies filled. This is my prediction, I want to hear from Lisa and Alex, there's going to be a handful that are going to be left for Trump. And there are certainly going to be appellate court openings, which is where Trump always does better. He did better the first time around, even though the overall gross numbers will be in Biden's favor. Trump has the advantage in appellate courts and has the advantage, of course, of the United States Supreme Court. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what the Senate majority and the House and all may try to do to give Donald Trump a Reagan moment to try to expand the court and let him fill even more federal judgeships. Lisa, Alex, it's a great way to start. How you guys doing?
Good to see you, Popok.
You too.
Yeah, this is a tough window of time. Obviously, a ton of pressure for this Senate Democratic caucus to get these judges over the line. The advocacy community has been, kicking into high gear. And one thing I'll note is that as we, our focus for the last year and a half since the first Clarence Thomas scandal broke has been on leaning on the Senate to do its job of congressional oversight and accountability to hold these corrupt judges to account. And what we heard throughout this year, sort of behind the scenes, was that there was a real concern about leaning hard into accountability politics because it was going to piss off Republicans, make them obstruct and block the confirmation of judges, which needed to be a priority. We always thought that it was essential that the caucus and the Democrats in the Senate were able to, walk and chew gum on those things. But of course, we understood the prioritization of judicial confirmations. And here we are after a deeply unfortunate presidential loss and a loss of the Senate majority in the November election, with these critical vacancies, many of which, as you note, will likely go unfilled, many of which were blocked by the use of the Senate blue slip, which provides, it's an informal kind of norm-based practice that provides senators a effective veto over the confirmation of judges in their states, which is going to effectively block President Biden's ability to confirm good pro-democracy judges to these seats. And so I think we're in this moment where the rubber is hitting the road on the confirmation of these last judges. Some of the judges, the blue slip has not been an impediment, but they're not going to get through anyway. And other vacancies are going to be left because of the blue slip. And so I think these questions are really important for folks to grapple with and for Democrats to get right on, particularly heading into this next era when, Grassley is going to want to try to keep that blue slip in place. And Democrats, I think, are going to be pressured to return blue slips and approve Trump judges, which we hope they will not do.
So before I turn it over to Lisa, just for those that are just tuning in, the horse trade that looks like it's been made, and I want to hear Lisa's opinion as the only person on this hot take who's got experience in all three branches of government, have you walk through for our listeners, what is the confirmation process? How does it work? And with the remaining time that's left, we've got the deal that's been announced. You guys can kibitz around it. Is that the Democrats will table permanently the remaining appellate court, circuit court seats, and only focus on getting in return, they will get apparently more of their trial level district court seats confirmed on a vote than they would have without this deal. Otherwise, why would you make the deal? We'll talk about the merits of the deal. But the reality is Trump's going to get less Biden's going to get less appellate courts confirmed, including the first Muslim American to ever be on an appellate court, in return for more on the trial court level. Lisa, why don't you walk everybody through sort of the process, and then you can talk about like expansion and this horse trade that's been obviously put in place.
Well, the thing about judgeships to remember, at least right now, until there are term limits, is that these are lifetime appointments at present. And what we've seen is over the last 40 years plus, how the Republicans have prioritized putting super young people into these positions at the appellate level, which is the circuit level at the federal courts, and the district court, which is the trial level in the federal courts. They've worked on putting very young people into those positions because they'll serve in those offices much longer than a presidential term. And so it's a way to shape policy for generations to come if your focus is on changing American law, changing American policy, and that's what their focus is. And so what happens is that the Justice Department with the White House work on nominations for the president. The president then makes those nominations. The Senate Judiciary Committee takes them up, considers them, and votes on them, as Alex knows super well from being the chief counsel for Senator Whitehouse. And then the full Senate, takes a vote on them or not, as was the case when I was the chief counsel for nominations and we were blocking some of the Bush nominees. But the process is one that involves advice and consent. And it's also the case that Trump appointed a historic number of judges during his first term. He appointed more than 200 federal judges. I think it was something like 234, including 3 Supreme Court placements, 2 of which were stolen, as we all have talked about before in terms of the election year machinations of Mitch McConnell. But now we have a situation in which Trump will have a whole second term potentially to fill these vacancies or new vacancies that are created for him. And he could certainly exceed the number of judges appointed by Ronald Reagan, who appointed nearly 400 judges, which was a majority of the federal judiciary.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to worry about. What do you think about? So is we're all in agreement that they're going to expand the number of federal judges, and Trump's going to get another 30 or 40 picks as a result?
I don't know about that. I think they're definitely going to try. They're already, making clear they're going to try. And this has been a matter of sort of bipartisan interest for a long time now. There is a real need for more judgeships. The courts are, woefully understaffed right now for the majority of the types of cases that we need the courts to resolve, the ones that don't have the huge political implications that we're talking about. But this is where the politicization of the justice system and the judicial branch really starts to break down its ability to function for everyday people in the resolution of those ordinary cases, like the ones that you and I and a lot of other lawyers used to litigate, or I think you're maybe still litigating Popok, but we need these courts to function, and they're not functioning because the Congress can't respond to these needs because the courts have been so highly politicized. Lisa mentioned there's this historic practice of judicial nomination and appointment. It didn't used to be so fractured. We used to find consensus around the appointment of judges. Sure, they might have, a political, bias one way or the other, or, a leaning, but they weren't sort of like cherry picked by special interest extremists, by billionaire funded outside interests like Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society to advance specific agendas. And as a result of that, I think we're now in an environment where you can't make bipartisan agreements to add new judges. When I was working in the Senate, we were trying to. This is during the Trump administration, and then most importantly, I think at the beginning of the Biden administration, we were trying to create a bipartisan package to add new judges. And those Republican senators refused to agree to any judge expansion bill that would have given President Biden seats to fill. They insisted on creating a timing structure such that the judges would begin to take their spots after Biden Biden's presidency was done. And so what I think we can certainly expect to see from Republicans now controlling a trifecta is a push to now, of course, create judicial vacancies that Trump will get to fill. And we've already seen Jerry Nadler, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, oppose an expansion bill that he himself was a co-sponsor of, which I think is a great thing because, we can't just be sort of walking into this world of creating vacancies for extremists to fill unilaterally. I think the Republicans have this mindset that they're the only people that should get to pick and confirm judges, and the Democrats need to stand up and fight back against that.
I just want to underscore one of the points that Alex made, which is that it's not just that they're appointing people to be judges who have experience or reputations of fairness. It's the opposite. And now with the control of the Senate, we're likely to see even more candidates for the federal bench who are unqualified, whose primary qualification is loyalty to Trump or an affinity for Trump, like we saw with Eileen Cannon, who was confirmed very late in Trump's first term after he lost the election. And we've seen Trump choose numerous people, both for the judiciary and for other positions, who are just unworthy of those positions of public trust, who have records of extremism. And so it's not just that these judgeships are out there and that they, can be filled by a president or can be nominated by a president. It's that Trump has shown a genuine pattern. I suppose genuine may even be the wrong word in this context, but a real pattern of choosing people who are partisan ideologues, who do not have the track record of fairness that we would expect or want in a judiciary, but instead are loyalists and partisans and people who have an agenda for the bench, like James Ho and others. And so it's very dangerous to have that type of takeover of the judiciary, because then you don't really have judges playing the role of fair judges. You have politicians in judicial robes.
So our audience comes to us both to identify the problem and to help with the solution. I'll give you an example. When Matt Gaetz, unfit, obscenely unqualified, was nominated, we jumped all over it on the Midas Touch Network, on Legal AF. I mean, I did 5 different videos on it. I'm not taking credit for tanking his candidacy or having him pull his nomination, but like I do subscribe to the hummingbird theory, and we did call on our audience, which is almost 4 million strong between the two channels, to everybody's got 2 senators, and to get on social media and start making this politically unpalatable for Gaetz to be. And then, of course, the media, right on cue, finally got around to recycling some information that had been out there for a long, long time about Venmo receipts and checks and all. Then, of course, as I said, space, nature abhors a vacuum. The news cycle abhors a vacuum. And if they weren't going to release that report against Gaetz, then others were going to do it for him. We got a hacker, potential leaker. We got the women, then girls coming forward that said they're going to testify. Got another person who came forward. I mean, that's what happened in that 6 days. So attention must be paid, right? And eventually that helped give the Senate and Senate Republicans some sort of political will not to allow Donald Trump to take them out in the back and shoot them along with the Constitution. On the judge side, which is your primary focus with CAA, what can we do about not allowing Donald Trump to get the ability to expand the federal court, to expand the United States Supreme Court, to have what he wants? He's declared it. He wants to completely reshape the face of the federal judiciary. He's not quiet about it. He's saying it. What can we do in opposition to that? What do you think we can do?
To my mind, we need to raise the political salience and increase the political pain of confirming and going along with this authoritarian agenda, both for the Republicans that I think will be, inclined to do what Trump wants to do, resistant to, to buck his directives, but who, I think if we are able to mount this type of public clamor, can be, shamed and scared away from these kinds of confirmations, but also with the Democrats who, when it comes to questions like the blue slip, which will continue in the context of these district court nominations, which give the Democrats a voice in the selection of even Trump judges, right, in their home states, if they have an ability to try to shape the selections, not to return those blue slips, not to make it hard, to make it a fight every time one of these extremists gets nominated and pushed for one of these important vacancies. They need to hear from constituents, from advocacy organizations, from the media about this thing, this stuff. I'll go back to one really problematic blue slip at the beginning of the first Trump administration, when Democrats, I think, were trying to look bipartisan, trying to work with the Republicans to make it smooth. Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, fought to get this guy David Strauss confirmed to the Eighth Circuit. Al Franken, the other senator at the time from Minnesota, did not want to return a blue slip for Strauss because he had a record as a Federalist Society extremist with hostility to voting rights and minorities. And Klobuchar insisted on returning the blue slip. They ended up breaking the circuit court blue slip right around that time in the context of Franken refusing to return that blue slip, but he put up a fight, right? He wanted to put up a fight. Klobuchar went along. Strauss was confirmed. He authored an opinion not very long ago, gutting the ability of individuals to bring suit for voter suppression, voter discrimination under the Voting Rights Act. And so we can't be a party. We can't be accomplices in the confirmation and enabling of these authoritarian judges. I think one thing we should be mindful of is that the judges Trump is likely to appoint in this second administration are going to be much worse. I think both of you have sort of invoked this, but in the first Trump administration, he didn't think about judges. He hadn't, he didn't care. He outsourced it to Don McGahn, his first White House counsel, who was working with Leonard Leo to pick these judges. The judges were awful, right? They're part of this ideological counter-revolution to overturn the 20th century, effectively. But Trump was sort of out to lunch about it. I think Trump is thinking much more aggressively about it now. He has been wrapped up in so much kind of judicial.
He's an educated consumer of the court system.
Exactly. Yeah. He's seen from the Aileen Cannon experience how helpful it is to have loyalists in these spots. And so it's going to get even worse. And I think that just creates opportunities for us to build political momentum and capital to leverage against.
That's good. That's something we can hold. Yeah. That's something we can hold on to. Lisa,
yeah.
What do you think?
I just want to help close us out with saying, I think the public has a really vital role to play, and I so appreciate your work, Popok, in highlighting Gates and other things, because what's going to happen is we're going to have a number of bad Supreme Court and lower court decisions by judges that are handpicked by the Trump right wing and handpicked by litigators to try to get wins in court for Trump. And so one of our needs and jobs really in the coming years is to make sure that people in our communities, in our towns, in these states know who is voting for these judges who are not suited for being judges, and the consequences, the decisions that those judges make. And so people have a lot that they can do in the coming months to really make sure that people understand how the judiciary is being moved from being a fair judiciary into this arm of Donald Trump, and what that means for people's lives and people's rights. And so we're going to need people understanding it, talking about it, sharing it, making calls, and really being engaged in the pushback.
Couldn't ask for better. That's the type of action that we need, not just court accountability action, and it's having an effect for those that that's why we don't want the audience to feel helpless and just like, oh, what I saw this. I'll end it this way. I'm sure you did too, in the New York Times, or maybe it was another posting, where women in particular are just so disheartened by what the protests were not able to accomplish the first time Donald Trump won, that they're all like, there's already like a hashtag, like, count me out, or hashtag, get somebody else this time. But it reflects this fatigue and this ennui and this sort of disappointment factor about it. But we can't let up if we don't push against the guardrail. Okay, as a people, they are going to fail. And if we don't, as you said, Alex, earlier, if we don't make it be politically painful for these elected officials to make these decisions, then they're just going to make it over us. I mean, I'll give you one last example. I could be wrong, and I'll come back and eat my hat on the air. But I think that the other byproduct of the Gates failure is that Donald Trump now realizes that and Thune as well, that there's no political will in the Senate to be Donald Trump's complete lapdog and to to abdicate their Article 1 responsibilities and let themselves be taken out in the back and shot and have recess appointments off a phony recess that's called where the Senate goes fishing for 10 days or more in order to let Donald Trump's worst unfit cabinet picks be selected. I mean, that nuclear option seems to now be off the table because they did a test run, a dress rehearsal with Gates, and it was like, yeah, we're not doing that. So that means that we can, with our voice, let our elected officials let them know that they will pay a steep political price as soon as the midterms, if not earlier, if they go along with Donald Trump's worst anti-democratic instincts.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add in that, I certainly understand the despair, but despair is the ally of authoritarianism. And it's certainly the case that everyone needs to catch their breath, gets a little bit of rest, really celebrate our families and our connections to each other, before this regime actually takes power, because this is not just a policy fight. This is a moral fight. And you don't give up a moral fight when you lose one election or you lose one battle. We're going to need people to find new and creative ways to help push back and stand up for our rights rather than give in. But I certainly know that in the near term, in the immediate aftermath, a lot of people are feeling really heartbroken and exhausted, and that's totally natural. So get some rest. But we're going to need you. We're going to need you in the fight ahead.
That's what we were doing. We were resting after the election, and now we're back. Court Accountability Action and Legal AF together again. Can't think of a better group of people to be shoulder to shoulder with and link arms with than Alex Aronson and Lisa Graves. So until our next hot take coming right up here on the Legal AF YouTube channel, take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. 60,000 people joined us since the election. That's a good thing. And we take that responsibility seriously to bringing you content just like this. So until our next hot take, Legal AF and Court Accountability Action signing off. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.